Lisa.
Yep. All right, we'll be,
Thank you. I do so many things at once. I'm walking. You guys would get dizzy if I was live right now.
okay, now I'm going to try to get back to shared screen again, and hopefully the study will go forward. All right, and these are the steps in the inductive study. You read the text itself from start to finish, instead of just, you don't just go verse by verse, but you go from the beginning to the end, get the whole text itself. Sometimes we even add a few verses before and after, depending upon what's going on there. And Linda's getting a telephone call.
Sorry.
And
Oh, it's part of Simon. Hi there.
okay. Anyway, we're online right now, so.
Watch what you say.
Okay. How you doing? You guys doing?
All right. Barbara Simon, I
Yeah,
guess.
good,
Yeah.
good. You gotta take it really easy. Hold on, let me put my tech expert on. Maybe he can help you.
What
Hold
does she
on.
want to do?
Okay, okay.
All right.
Megan's gonna, you can get her on.
And we got Dan Clark joining us.
Okay. All right, Barbara.
It's Megan.
Megan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Pastor.
We're on Zoom.
Yeah, we're on Zoom. I just need, it says I hit join meeting. I need to know the meeting ID or the personal link name.
Right. It's 528
Okay.
863
Mm-hmm.
6320.
Now, if you want to speak or say something, you just move the cursor. See.
Okay, my camera's on.
Okay.
Join with, you want them to see you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Join with,
All right.
All right.
You do it?
Thank you.
oh,
All right.
there we are.
Yeah.
You on?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
All right. Okay. All right. We're going to mute you now. So,
Audio.
Where are they?
There you go.
okay. All right. So
Oh, very good.
the method of inductive Bible study is read the text from start to finish, add some general setting of the text so people have a sense of what you're looking at. For example, a scripture text could be from the Old Testament, could be from the New Testament, and obviously it could come from various periods in history and so on, and there might be references in it that would be significant in terms of geography, the historical setting, the characters, and so on and so forth. So that's part of what a leader does in doing an inductive study. So it involves a little bit of preparation. And then there are 4 key questions. And the first question is, and there are different questions one could ask, but these are the ones that I put in there. What did the text say to the people for whom it was written? Okay, so when you're looking at a text, it was written at a certain time to a certain audience. So what did it say to them? All right, what did it mean to them? How does the text relate to our contemporary setting? Brings it right up to current day. And then what can I apply or take away from this text for my life today? Okay. And here's a prayer for this week. Vicar, can you see the whole text of the prayer?
No, but I think
Okay.
I think that's last week's prayer. No,
Yeah, okay.
I can read it from my.
All right, we'll just go on. All right, the texts for this week are these 4 texts. Now, this is a little bit of
That's not this week.
That's last week.
That's last week.
You didn't take that out, okay. Here's the text for this week. Psalm 23 is what we're going to focus on today. And then on Thursday afternoon, we will take a look at the gospel lesson from John 10. So anyone who can join us, that's what we'll be talking about. We'll spend only about a half hour. We're not going to spend 2 hours like we did last week. And then on Friday, we'll look at the other two texts, the text from Acts and the text from 1 Peter. So there we are. All right.
What
So,
time are those sessions going to be?
One in the word. 1 p.m.
Oh, 1 p.m. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So the whole idea, and then starting next week, is we'll start on Monday, Tuesday, then we'll have our hymn sing on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday will be the other two readings. So we'll have one a day starting next week.
right. Okay, now how do I, oh, I guess it's.
Is that at 1 o'clock each week, each
Yeah.
day?
Each day, yep.
That's,
you.
1 o'clock on the word.
yeah, give you a hint, 1 in the word. That's a,
All right, I know we're not together, so now you have to bug me on Zoom.
yeah. Okay. All right, now, how do I, let's see. All right, I'm going to make Eric the host now.
Ah, okay.
All right. Now, do you want to change? Yes, I do want to change. All right, now I'm going to close the screen. And Eric,
I am the host.
you can start up another PowerPoint if you want to, or however you have it set up.
Yep. Let me swing back. Okay, so we talked about the texts this week. We're doing Psalm 23 today, and then we'll do the Gospel Thursday, and then, as Pastor said, Acts and 1 Peter on Friday. Before we get into the questions,
Eric, excuse
yep.
me. I have nothing on my screen. It says end of slideshow. Click
That's
to exit.
He hasn't put anything on yet.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
I thought it, you know what it is? I didn't share. Ah,
Okay, now you can share.
okay.
Donna, you need to mute.
Oh, Donna's here.
Yep.
There, you see it now?
There's Tom.
Well, we're getting there. Okay.
Oh, now I see it. Question 1.
Okay, well, before we get into the questions, we're going to read Psalm 23 in its entirety. Would anybody like to read it? Volunteer? If not, I will do it.
I'll read it.
Linda
Ready?
will.
All right, go Linda.
From this version, is this it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you. So just as a point of context and understanding the background to this, I'll ask you this question. What is Psalm 23 most known for? Anybody?
Everybody's microphone is off.
Most of the time you hear it at funerals.
Absolutely. It is one of the most well-known Psalms that is read at just about every funeral. As a matter of fact, I actually read that Psalm to my aunt as I said goodbye to her 2 weeks ago as she was dying. So I know those words were always comforting to me, and I trust that they were comforting to her. But that wasn't the intent of the writer of the Psalm. It really talks about how we live together in community with God and how God protects us and gives us what we need. And that's, I guess, comforting words for somebody who is dying or or was burying somebody, that, you know, they would hear those words, that those trusting promises that we hear. We also know Psalms are poems or hymns, and they can be songs of praise or even songs of lament. And as people experience God and how they express their satisfaction or dissatisfaction. But this psalm is one of trust, and it's trust in the divine shepherd who is leading his people in a new exodus. And it gives us individual assurance that whatever our needs are, they will be met. And back in the context of when this was written, the kings were supposed to provide everything to the people. It was supposed to provide food, drink, shelter, and protection from all sorts of evil. But the kings often failed. They often failed. So this was a poem or a hymn that was reassuring to the people in those days. I want to show you a little video. It's a 4.5-minute video that gives us a little more perspective of this psalm, specifically around sheep, right? Because sheep is mentioned here. Let's see. Okay. So think about the psalm that Linda just read, and hear this and help fill in some blanks.
You have the sound on and the sharing. That's what I always forget to do.
Right. I didn't have Joyce reminding me.
I'm going to make a little sign up.
You can expand the picture too.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've done this. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to expand here. Okay.
Part of the shepherd lesson, I did want to look at one thing in the wilderness that will maybe surprise you a bit. Believe it or not, this is called wilderness, midbar, but it's also called green pastures. Now, when you take a Westerner here the first time and you look at this, you find people say, well, I don't know that I can go there, because the Psalm 23, the Lord leads me into green pastures, has been pictured as belly deep alfalfa. Well, you haven't seen any belly deep alfalfa. And from biblical time to today, it's rare to see a flock in the farm country. There isn't a lot of farm country in this culture, and so farmers kept the shepherds out as much as they could. Maybe they would come in a little bit after the harvest to glean what was left, but you don't want sheep where you can farm. This is the land of the shepherd. Right on the hillside across from us, you can see those grazing trails, cut there by sheep maybe as long ago as Abraham's time. They're spaced so that an animal on one path and an animal on another can reach right to the middle between them. That determines the distance, so you can graze an entire hillside. And the shepherds lead their sheep across that hillside slowly, grazing what's there. Now, you look at it from here and you say, what's there? In fact, I remember my first impression. I woke up one morning, I was sleeping out in the wilderness, and I remember waking up, watching a flock of sheep on a hillside like this, and my feeling was, what are those, rock-eating sheep? I mean, what do they eat? How can you call this green pastures? Well, the answer is there's a small amount of moisture present here. They get a little bit of rain every year. Not much, but a little. Second, there is humidity in the air, especially in the evening breeze. Like right now, you can feel it coming from the west off the Mediterranean. There's moisture in the air. That moisture, combination of the rain and the humidity, condenses or drips along the edge of these rocks here. And if you notice, right around the rocks, almost always next to the rocks, you get little tufts of green. Get one a moment. That's what we refer to as the green pastures. So the shepherd looks for a hillside. That's exactly what she was doing. Look at that flock across from us there. Just stunning. Those two shepherd girls have found a hillside that either was exposed to the wind or had that small amount of rain. And they move that flock across the hillside, and it's one mouthful here, walk a step or two, another mouthful, another mouthful, another mouthful. Now that changes the green pasture image a little bit, besides the picture changing radically. Green pastures are not everything you need for the rest of your life. If you make that belly deep alfalfa, then what God is saying, if you follow me, I'm going to plunk you down and you'll never have to move an inch the rest of your life. Just reach out and grab it. Tell me that your life with God has been like that. Worry, said one rabbi, is dealing with tomorrow's problems on today's pasture. In the desert, you learn the shepherd will get you what you need for right now. 10 minutes from now, you trust the shepherd. Just enough.
Well, that was an interesting explanation of green pastures. That was shocked when I first saw this. Not what I expected. But some good things, some facts in there that we'll get to in a little bit. I also want to make some comments about sheep. Sheep, they're gentle, they're submissive, but they can be stubborn. But they need a shepherd to guide them on the right path to safety and to food and drink, just like we saw in that video, especially when the food is scarce. And in that kind of country, you could see you're going to go stop here, eat, walk a little bit, stop, eat. So you're constantly walking to and fro, getting what you need. So the metaphor of using the shepherd and the sheep, and you probably all figure that out right now, that, well, the shepherd is God and the sheep are us. And we do need, like sheep, we do need God's guidance. Another thing is you think back to the first couple of verses, sheep can't swim. And they will wade into water, but once they realize that they can't get out, they will drown because they kind of freeze. So they're not very good in water, and the water needs to be calm and not rushing, like not a rushing stream. That would not be a place for them to go and drink. They need nice, cool, calm pools of water. Plus the coats, their hair, their coat on their bodies, when it gets wet, it weighs them down. So they would surely drown. So there is a lot of danger out and about for sheep that they really rely on the shepherd to guide them out of danger. And you would think, sheep can be stubborn, and if they're confronted with another animal or an adversary, instead of battling their way out, they'll just freeze and they will die. So again, they need the shepherd. We'll read this in John's gospel later on in the week, but we'll hear John talk about the sheep hear my voice and they follow me. And that's real important. The sheep become familiar with the shepherd's voice. He makes me lie down in green pastures. You saw on that video, we're not in belly deep of alfalfa. Where do you find those green pastures? Not in that country. You don't find that. But we know where we can find that. And a couple other facts about sheep. To get sheep to lie down is very difficult. You need a few things. You need sufficient food for them to actually lie down. They need to be free of any stress or impending adversaries, right? They need to feel secure. They also need to be free of flies and gnats and any other type of insects that are biting them. Okay. And they need to be free of friction with others. So you need all those to happen before sheep can lie down into green pastures. Just a couple words on the author. This is attributed to David. David wrote many of the Psalms. And this is written based on his own experiences of a shepherd when he was a young lad, as he was tending to the sheep in that countryside. But he also wrote this with another incident in mind when he was fleeing from Saul, who was trying to kill him. David fled to an area called En-Gedi, is a place where he encountered an oasis in the midst of that desert. And we'll talk about that in a couple of seconds. And this psalm, as he was writing it, he was relating this to the people of his time, right? The Jewish people were very comfortable and very familiar with shepherds and with sheep and with goats, because that was their livelihood. And they were very familiar with that. And they knew that their flocks were dependent on that shepherd. I mentioned the En-Gedi, which illustrates Psalm 23. That's the place that's just southeast of Jerusalem. And I am going to venture to my desktop again, if I get this right. Oh, I have to share again. Hold on. Just to give us perspective of the geographic location of this place is, and I'm going to try another cool thing that we have here. Can you guys see the map I have up there? Yeah, I see nods. Okay. Someone's quiet. So quiet. I was hoping to use the annotation tools here, but I could draw this little circle. So we're talking about this place that I guess David was thinking about would be right in this area here. You could see my mouse moving.
Mm-hmm.
Just to the right and above Judah there, okay? Just southeast of Jerusalem, and then just the Dead Sea further east. So that's the place that this was coming from. Ah, here we go. Ah, this would have been, here we go. Now that's cool. Right there, X marks the spot. Okay. So the audience obviously was the people, and you really look at this as two audiences. We look at it as us, as we read this and how we apply this in our lives, and that comes up in one of the 4 questions that we'll answer in a few seconds. But this also was for the people of those times that experienced hardships in their life, and they were ruled by kings that were not always looking out for the people's best interests. So they really had to rely on their faith with God, especially people who were constantly on the move. So it was written to calm their nerves and to give them some sense of comfort. Any questions? No. Okay. I'm going to try to get rid of this map here. Maybe I'll stop the share. I may have to redo the share here. Okay. All right, get to the PowerPoint. Okay, so there's a little background of Psalm 23. It was a lot of fun doing some of that research and a lot of cool stuff on YouTube explaining but let's get to the questions here. Question number 1, what did the text say to the people for whom it was written? And we can unmute you if we're nice. Oh, and I see Claudia's there. Barbara Simon.
Hi.
Pastor Hill, Joyce. All right. Okay. So what do you think this text was saying to the people for whom it was written back in David's day? Any thoughts?
Well, I think it's they were talking about physically that God is a guide, that he would guide us through things, that we could expect not to do it on our own, that we do
Right.
have guidance in this, in all things
Right.
actually. But they were
Absolutely.
talking about more of a physical thing.
Yep. And that God's promise was sufficient for what we need, right? And
Well, he certainly did describe how stubborn we are, and we have to have everything really nice around us before we'll lie down and accept.
yes, yes, that's still true today.
Yes.
Absolutely. And, you know, basically this text is also telling the people, you rely on God and be in community with God. You know, you can't rely on God by yourself. You need to be in community with your neighbor. And together we are fed by God and we're guided by God. Because again, we can't count on the king of those times. And there's a long history of some terrible kings in the Old Testament.
You know, it also kind of pointing towards that, try to accept what we get for the day. And that's kind of really hard for us as people to kind of not plan ahead. Even these times that we're in right now, always planning ahead, never just accepting what we get for the day and being content with that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, the word that comes to my mind is relax.
Yeah. Yeah.
We tend, you know, I'm as guilty as anyone about this, not being able to really relax and let things be, as Phil said, you know.
Very true.
So even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You know, the rod and the staff are symbols of royalty. And the rod was one of a prod, you know, prod people to move along the path and to do what's right. And the staff, the crook, right, is used for shepherds. And I think Pastor Hill many times probably wanted to use his crook to pull me in line at times.
No comment.
Get over here, Vicar. But yeah, those are great images that they're all very familiar with. That God is here to guide us, to prod us, to push us along that path when we're stubborn. And you know, maybe we can't stop and eat amongst the grass amongst those rocks. We have to keep moving. We have to find more pasture. We have to go find the food. We just can't sit there.
And you have someone with you to guide you. It's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
important. You're not alone.
Right.
That was me.
Anything else? All right.
In one of the videos on YouTube, there is a rabbi who kind of gives his commentary on this text, and you know, and one of the things he talks about there is that the posture of the sheep is to sprawl out in the where the green grass is and so on. Really to be totally at ease, and you know, not having to do anything, just kind of let it be.
Yeah, so if we look at question 2, what did the text mean to the people for whom it was written? It was very meaningful for them to have that comfort and to lie down. It was okay to lie down, and you will get everything that you need from God, and you'll be protected. You know, the still waters, you know, the sheep don't like rushing water, and rushing water is often used for a metaphor of controversy or struggles in life, right? Cross the rushing river. Rushing water can often be an adversary. And what it can mean for people is these calm pools of water that God plucks us down beside is so soothing and comforting. And, God is showing, his goodness and mercy with that. Any other thoughts?
The other thing about the goodness and mercy, they follow me. In other words, it's God is there not simply to lead and guide, but also to follow, to kind of be there to lean back on,
Right.
so that when we find ourselves struggling, we don't have to be so caught up in ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's where the trust comes in. I don't know if you've ever been in meetings where you're doing this exercise where you're standing up with your eyes closed, and then you have to trust the person behind you, and as you're asked to then fall backwards, and the person behind you is going to catch you, and that can be very hard. Knowing, okay, that person is he really going to catch me? Can he catch me? But we know with God can do that. And that's the kind of trust that they had, that God's going to catch them when they fall amongst the rocks, and just it's amazing how to see the sheep, how they navigate the hillsides amongst the rocks, and they get guided along the right path.
So it reminds me of that expression, God's got our back.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Absolutely. Is there, I'll go to the third question here. How does this text relate to our contemporary setting? And I want to kind of ask a question B to this too. Think about what we read before in the Psalm. What stands out? What phrase, what word, what metaphor really stands out for you today?
Well, this is Phil. I think the big one is, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. I mean, it's the stress from this whole pandemic seems to give you even more. And even if you really don't feel that you should have stress, you do get it naturally.
Right.
And so it's relevant, even though this is a passage from thousands of years ago. The idea that you don't have the anxiety, or you don't have, well, not that you might, you don't have to have that anxiety if you trust in God. But if you
Absolutely.
don't, you're going to have whatever that is, the anxiety, the fear, even though you can't do anything about it.
Right. We're constantly looking to lie down on those green pastures. And what I'm trying to paraphrase what the video said earlier, life isn't like that. We're constantly stopping along the path, the rocky path, getting little bits here and there. And it's hard to find that green pasture, and we may never find that green pasture here, at least here in this life.
I think it also depends on how you define the green pasture. Like in today's time, I'm trying to be that green pasture for the doctors that are working here. And I try to give them, something uplifting, even if it's just a kind word or something that can just make them know that there are others that are thinking about them. It's really a difficult time. So like today with the flyover, there was a lot of the doctors out here, and it was great because it just gave them that little bit of sense of normalcy, so to speak, or appreciation, knowing that there are others that are thinking about them, even though they can't be by their side. And the word comfort is what I've been holding on to a lot. I'm trying to find things that are comforting to me and others, and I just I hold on to that. And this passage really, thy rod and thy staff comfort me. I try to do as many church-related activities as possible because that's the one thing I'm really missing. I 3 or 4 out of the 7 days of my week are surrounded by church people. And if I didn't have this connection, I'd really be lost. And so the comfort that you all give me and this passage gives me, green pastures can be anything that we want it to be.
And we can't be in green pastures without being in community with each other, right? So we need each other. You're holding the hands of doctors or nurses or even patients when they need to have that feel. They need to have that your hand on their hand, saying, "Hey, you're not alone."
Right.
Providing that comfort. That's great. Anything else? How is this? What's popping in your heads right now? Anything?
The words I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking of a little article in today's Newsday about a doctor who worked in an emergency room and then went down to Virginia, was with her family and committed suicide.
Yeah, I saw
And I
that.
was thinking, that, wow, if only someone could have comforted her, she had been diagnosed with the illness, but she needed comfort, and it just wasn't there in the way she needed it.
Yeah.
It was too much for her.
Yeah.
Words that stuck out to me was "He restores my soul."
Hmm.
And
Tell me more about that. What is he restoring?
I don't know. He's restoring my humanity, I guess. It's just been very hard for me because I live alone. And yes, I do talk to people on the phone, and I do FaceTime my children and my grandchildren. It's just not the same.
Right.
I can't go out and see people. I can't give people a hug. And I know this will pass. So the scriptures have been very important to me. As Lisa said, I get comfort from coming on Zoom and being with others. But it is very hard for me. The last 2 days I have gotten my act together and I've tried to do something each day. Today I planted some plants in my garden, and I've been working on organizing my CDs and DVDs. So that's a project in itself. But for the last 4 weeks, I haven't done anything. So it is just very hard.
It is very hard because we're people of community too. We're not used to being isolated.
I'm not. I'm used to going out in my car every day, going up to church and doing something, even if I'm just there for a couple of minutes talking to people.
Right.
Being able to go out into the store, being able to go to a restaurant and get something to eat, Anyway, that's why He restores my soul is very, it hits home. When Pastor said before to relax, my children always tell me to breathe, Ma, breathe.
Yeah.
That's this week has been tough for me. Am I on there?
Yep.
With my friend Molly passing away, and I feel like I can't grieve. It's that like I should be there with them.
Right.
I should be with my daughter. There's just something's just like not right, and I wish I could be at church. But this is helping. This is,
absolutely.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, it's just like weird to me that there's just something missing. Something's missing in the whole grieving process here.
Yeah, I found it very hard this morning. I went for my walk, which is normally restoring to me, restoring my soul. I find that very restoring. And here I am on my walk and back on Sandpiper. What do I pass but a funeral procession?
Oh, wow.
Stopping in front of a house that I pass all the time.
Yeah.
And I can't say anything to the people in the car. I don't even know the house, but it was very upsetting.
I'm sure that was.
Yeah, they drove by my house.
Did they? Yeah, it was very upsetting this morning.
Yeah.
And normally the walk restores my soul, and instead I came back feeling worse.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of my thing too. I would love to go for a walk. I can't with my foot.
Mhm.
I can't. I'm like immobilized here. I mean, I'm walking around my house. We did go outside before to try to see the Jets, but I guess they didn't come this far. So that was disappointing. But
Mhm.
I was outside for a little bit, sitting in the sun with my son and my grandson. But
That's good.
I can't get out and walk. I can't. Very frustrated all around. It's a very frustrating thing. And I don't know how long this is going to go on. That's the other thing. So I guess I got to relax and take it day by day till I get that phone call. Yes, we're going to operate on your foot.
Right.
But it is frustrating. And yeah, but now I say, yeah, just take it day by day. Stop thinking about tomorrow or the next week or yeah.
Yep.
Right. God will give you what you need.
Okay.
Even if
I need my foot
really tough.
operated on.
Hey, Don, go
coming.
for a roll.
Oh, goodness.
Anybody else want to add to anything?
Little man.
Well, I think it's one of the things that we're learning here about the nature of what it means to be church during this time. The need to be able to give strength to one another, and one of the frustrations, of course, that we have, and I know Vicar Eric, I know you've been dealing with this in terms of just reaching out to all the people. We have so many people who could be going through some very terrible times, and we just no way we're going to even know what people are going through for the most part, because there are just so many. And we rely upon each other to even keep us aware of what's going on in people's lives.
Right.
I had a long chat with Christina Nims yesterday about her experience of recovering from the virus and so on, and it's still not completely recovered. But if it wasn't for the fact that we had the teen ministry session on Saturday, I would not have even known that she had gone through this. And here, both she and her husband had the virus, and wow, that's very close to home.
So the last question, what can I apply or take away from this text from our life today? And I think we covered a lot of this in some of the comments that we just made. I'm hearing, we're trusting in God. We're trusting that God's restoring our soul, comforting us in this unusual time. And with the hope and the promise that this too shall pass. And we'll be back together again with shouts of thanksgiving, right, Donna?
Yep.
As we worship together in community. Yep. And, Carol Morrow, I mean, the church is not church unless you get the hug and a kiss from Carol. I mean, and that big smile of hers. I miss that. I miss that, seeing folks, and as you all do. It's so much harder to be in community when we're not together, and you have to find those opportunities to try to learn what's going on in people's lives. It's very easy for me personally, when I'm avoiding something, or if I find that I'm isolating, it's because I fear something. There's something that's scaring me. There's something that I'm avoiding. And what helps restore me back is saying that, it's okay to fear, but, fear not. God is with us. And I don't have to fear, I know that, it's love, not fear, that should be guiding my life.
It's interesting in the Psalm, you have that phrase where it says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows, or my cup is filled to the brim, as a rabbi said in the video I watched. It's we get everything that we need, and we do it in the face of our enemies. You know, it's almost like saying, you know, it's not some kind of imaginary state. It's a matter of finding actual strength to face our enemies and to be able to do that with confidence because of what God is doing with us.
So the image of the table and the cup runneth over reminds us of the Eucharist that we experience or haven't experienced in a few weeks, but we will soon. Of when we come to that table and we make peace with our neighbor before we come to that table. And even if there are enemies, we're all one together at that table, eating and drinking with each other, being surrounded, restoring our soul with God's love through that communal meal.
Well, it's interesting and fortunate that this particular psalm comes up at this particular time in terms of our daily situation. I mean, this is when it's supposed to come up in the calendar of the church, but it's also when it's supposed to come up in terms of what's going on in the world.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
Well,
any other comments or last thoughts? We're approaching our hour mark here.
Well, just to remind people that, you know, we're constantly adapting what we're doing here. And part of that adaptation is that tomorrow we have the hymn sing, and then on Thursday we will look at the gospel lesson from John chapter 10. And then on Friday we'll look at the other two texts from Acts chapter 2 and 1 Peter. I don't have that text in my mind here, but it's on the slide there.
Are those at 1 o'clock also?
Yeah.
Yep,
One in the word. That's, we're trying to make it simple.
Oh, right.
Easy to remember.
That I can remember?
Yep.
Me
me too.
Just remember
Me too.
one thing you need to remember. Oh, gee.
So these are the texts for next week, and you'll see these obviously by the end of the week, but those are the texts coming up Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We may change the order of them. Pastor and I haven't
Yeah, we haven't done
thought that through yet, but those are the 4 texts that we have for next week. So when you come to worship on Sunday, you're going to have a leg up on the other people who didn't make it today, and you'll get more out of the sermon.
Wait, put that back. I was writing it down.
Psalm 31, 1-5, and 15.
I'm going Thursday and Friday.
John 14, 1-14.
I know, I see it.
Yeah, it's
Oh, Lord.
another one of those texts that we often hear at funerals.
Great.
No, it is. And
No, I think great.
yeah. And then 1 Peter 2:2.
I guess that's the way I said it.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for some of the new folks that have joined us, Barbara and
I'm not new.
Dan. Well, not new, but
I'm not new.
but new to Zoom.
It's good to see you, Barbara.
But you're new to our Zoom. That's great.
That's
New to the
I'm
Zoom.
Zoom.
Claudia
So glad
too.
to see and
And
hear
I
from you,
have
Barb.
COVID. I have the virus, but I'm doing good.
Yeah, we
Good.
know.
Yeah,
How are you
long is
feeling?
it? Yeah.
How are you feeling, Barbara?
Much better. Thank you.
I see you ate raspberries with whipped cream.
What, sweetie?
You had raspberries with whipped cream?
My
I was
daughter
on
puts
Facebook.
everything on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's good.
I saw it.
That's good. I like to see those pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
She also has a secret camel that's helped her through this.
What?
Linda Hill.
What's a secret camel?
She knows.
You never know.
But Dee is jealous because Dee knows camels well.
That's true. That's true. I did get to ride one. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
Yep,
send
I
you
did
one.
get to ride one.
I have it in video, so I can prove it.
I'll send you one, Dee.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for the hymn sing.
I'll be here.
And it was nice to see you, Dan and Claudia, too.
Yeah.
Great. But let's close in prayer. I know you had other things you could have done in the last hour, so Pastor and I both thank you for spending that hour with us and with each other. We do appreciate that.
Thank
So
you.
let us pray. Oh God, our shepherd, you know your sheep by name and lead us to safety through the valleys of death. Guide us by your voice that we may walk in certainty and security to the joyous feast prepared in your house. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Amen.
Okay,
care, guys.
everybody. Well, thank you all for being there and stay well.
thank you, Eric, for leading.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes,
you,
it was
Donna.
very- It was very good.
Yeah.
It was good
real
seeing
good.
everybody.
It was
Thank
very
you.
good to see everybody.
All right. So
What do I do now?
why don't you
See you
close,
tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
close the
Bye.
meeting out, Eric?
Bye.
Bye.
You can close the meeting out. Far right corner.